We are hitting week 5, about halfway through the Genesis part of this series called Tell Me Something Good. And we're going to look at Abraham and his initial call. And then next week we'll look at Isaac, Abraham and Isaac and that story. But we're going to look today at Genesis 12, where God called Abraham, or Abram, I guess, to follow him into the unknown, to trust him and to follow him into the unknown. And he asks the same of us. When we obey, like Abraham, we'll be rewarded. I keep saying Abraham. His name technically is Abram at this time, but give me a little bit of grace there because it's too hard to go back and forth or to remember that. So we're going to go with Abraham, even though he hadn't officially had his name changed here at this point. So let's talk about God's call on Abram's life. Genesis 12, 1 through 9. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and to your kindred, and your father's house, to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions, all that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give you this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abraham journeyed on, still going toward the Negev. All right, so God told Abram to go. He said, go. Some translations say go. Some say leave. Some say get thee out. Variations of that. But the point is, he said, get out of here. The Hebrew word means to go or to walk away. And there's a level of insistence. Go now. An insistence on setting out and going. So he told him to go. He tells him to leave what's comfortable, to leave what's familiar. He says, leave your father's house. He says, leave what's comfortable, leave what's familiar, leave everything that you know at this point. Family, friends, job, land, home, all of that. His whole life is being left behind. So he's called out of comfort. He's called out of familiarity. He's called to step out in faith and to trust God. And he called Abraham to trust him and to step into the unknown and the uncertain. He's told to leave his home and go, but he's not told what the final destination is. He's not told where he's going to land. He's not told where he's going to be ultimately. Imagine being told, but not being able to see more than just one step ahead, one step into the future, the immediate step. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't know what's ahead. He knows very, very little, if anything. It's a massive leap of faith. It's a huge step. It's a huge trusting God. It's putting his faith to the test. And God promised great things for him. He made him a bunch of promises. He says you'll have multiple dependents. You'll have fame. You'll have divine favor and protection. You'll be a blessing to others. Your name will be great. It's physical blessings. It's spiritual blessings alike. And part of the ultimate fulfillment of the spiritual side happens through Jesus as the Messiah down through the line of Abraham. So God promised great things for Abraham if he left. Abraham's response is something we need to learn from. He obeys immediately. The Bible doesn't give a time that he paused to think or to negotiate or bargain with God or to work out all the specific details or to argue with God or even the spiritual version, let me pray about it. He doesn't do any of that. It doesn't show him doing any of that. It shows him obeying. It shows him going. It shows him immediately stepping out, even though it couldn't have made any sense to him. So he obeys immediately. And in obeying, he trusts God to guide him. He goes where God says. He packs it all up, family possessions, land, home, leaves all of that behind, heads out, takes off, doesn't know where the ultimate destination is, but he's trusting God to guide him. He gets to the land of Canaan. God says, this is where your descendants will live, but that's not even the final destination. He worships and builds an altar, and then he keeps going. It isn't the final destination. So he trusts God and journeys on ahead, leaving it all behind. It's all in God's hands. He's not banking on knowing all the end results or knowing all the specific details. Corrie ten Boom once said this: never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. And that's what we need to learn, is being willing to trust what we know, who we know, God, with what we don't know, our future. And that's what happens here. He trusts God to guide him. And God blesses his faithful obedience. The original Hebrew links his blessings to faithfully following the call of God. If he went forth, if he obeyed, if he trusted even when he didn't get it, he would be blessed. He would benefit. He would receive the promises that God had made to him. So he does, and he's given a good land. He's given many descendants. He's given a great name. He's told all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. And ultimately, that's fulfilled down the line in the Messiah, Jesus, as being part of the lineage, part of the line of Abraham. The question we have to ask ourselves is this: am I willing to follow God in obedience, even when it's scary or difficult? Can you imagine being told, pack it all up, leave it all behind, go, start moving, and not knowing where the end destination is? It's a difficult task. It has to be scary. It has to be confusing. It has to be difficult. It has to be something you're scratching your head going, what? Is this really what what? Am I supposed to do this? But he does it, and God blesses. He did it, and he received the promises that God had made him. The question for us is, will we do the same? Even when we can't see a clear endpoint. Will we have faith to move? Will we have faith to obey? Will we have faith to go as Abraham did? Am I willing to follow God in obedience, even when it's scary or difficult? God calls Abraham to leave everything he knows, to go to a land that he'll show, to leave behind family, to leave behind the city that he knows, the job, the possessions, the land, all of that, and to go where God leads. Oh, and by the way, he's 75 at the time. I might have failed to mention that. And he didn't have any kids. So how is all this going to happen if he's that old already, no kids already, and so forth? And yet he's willing to leave it behind. The kind of faith God blesses is the kind of faith that's willing to leave it all behind and trust God. It's more likely, it's not likely we're going to be called to just journey and then stop when God says stop or whatever. It's more likely something that leads us to die to ourselves by putting others first and ultimately putting God first. By putting others' interests ahead of our own and ultimately putting God's interests ahead of everything else. We might not be called to go to a foreign land, although we might, but we are called to obey the Lord. And we should know that obedience leads to blessing. So what is God asking of you? What leap of faith does he want you to take? Will you do it today? Will you step out in faith and let him unveil his plan as you go? I promise you won't regret it if you do.